For many people across the country, the permitting process of a hydrogen fueling station will be a new experience. Hello, I'm Carl Baust of the Orange County Fire Authority, and this video will help you navigate some very big challenges if you need to learn about permitting a hydrogen fueling station. As this technology gets installed, planners and regulators from around the country will be faced with temperatures of minus 423 degrees Fahrenheit and pressures exceeding 10,000 psi, installed only feet away from the general public. There are several regulators involved in the approval process, each serving their own purpose. The main three consist of staff from the planning, building, and fire departments. We shall begin to look at the considerations and concerns that each of these departments have. But before we get into the regulations, codes, and standards, let's hear a little bit about the importance of helping to spread this technology from a few of the world's foremost authorities.
Hi, I'm Matt Miyasato. I'm the Deputy Executive Officer for Science and Technology Advancement here at the South Coast Air Quality Management District. If you look at the way China is now today, that's where we would have been had we not taken action back in the 40s and 50s. Even though the air quality seems like it's getting better, you can see the mountains on many more days a year, it's still, as we do more health studies, we find it's actually worse than we originally thought. That the air pollution is affecting many things besides your respiratory system, asthma. It's also affecting your brain. It's linked to autism now. So having air pollution get worse is just going to increase the health burden to the region. And so we have to continue to increase our diligence and improve the air quality for the 17 million residents in our region. Turns out that most of the emissions in our region, about 80% of the NOx, which creates ozone, which is smog, is due to mobile sources. As the population increases and everybody wants to drive their own car as a single occupant on the freeways, we've got to have even cleaner vehicles. And so even though population and vehicle miles traveled is likely to increase, we've got to have then increasingly clean vehicles on our freeways. So it's really mobile sources that we need to attack with the cleanest possible technologies. And we're focused on near zero and zero tailpipe emission technologies such as fuel cells. Because of our population density, it's more of an acute problem here in Los Angeles, but there are good movement corridors throughout the nation. And if the EPA reduces or lowers the ozone standard, which we believe they will, to be more health protective, it's going to affect a lot more communities. But for example, if you look at the ports throughout the nation, they have trucks going into and out of those ports and have communities nearby. And so it's really not just a localized Southern California problem, it's really a national problem. Well, that's really a California Air Resources Board regulation. So the ZEV regulation or ZEV mandate requires the automakers to produce a certain number of zero emission vehicles by a certain date. Of course, that regulation has changed and morphed over the years, but it's really been the mechanism for forcing the automakers to bring the cleanest possible technologies. And the fruits of that we're going to see here in Southern California, because now we have fuel cell vehicles, we have the light duty vehicles, the Hyundai Tucson, the Toyota Mirai is coming out, the Honda Clarity is going to be coming out next year. But what it means is you also have to have the fueling infrastructure in place. So you can't have hydrogen fuel cell vehicles without hydrogen fueling. We've got a lot of work to do, but with clean technologies such as fuel cells, electric drive, we think we have a shot.
It seems clear we need zero-emission vehicles, but how long will it take until hydrogen fuel cell technology becomes a real solution?
My name is Scott Samuelson. My position is Director of the National Fuel Cell Research Center at the University of California, Irvine, and also a Professor of Mechanical, Aerospace, and Environmental Engineering on the faculty at the University of California, Irvine. My personal experience with fuel cell hydrogen vehicles over the last 20 years began in 2002 with the introduction and presentation of the first hydrogen fuel cell vehicle to the United States here through the University of California, Irvine with Toyota. And from that date, we have had at least one vehicle and up to 17 hydrogen fuel cell vehicles that have been deployed to members of the community and corporations also to city councils, in order to have them both understand and experience this new future, but also to help them with the decision making going forward with respect to such things as hydrogen fueling stations. Well, hydrogen fuel cell is really a fascinating engine. It replaces the combustion engine under the hood of the automobile. It's very much like a battery that we're used to for a flashlight, in that it has two electrodes, an anode and a cathode. It's just that in the case of a fuel cell, we continuously provide it with fuel, in this case hydrogen, and it continuously produces electricity if it is receiving that fuel. We fuel hydrogen vehicles today very much like natural gas vehicles. We connect the hose to the vehicle and then just press go, much like we do with gasoline, and within 5 minutes or less, the tank is filled, and we're off and running for another 300 or 400 miles. Well, different types of fueling stations would depend upon the way that they are configured and then the way that they're operated. All of the station will have the same dispenser, so that'll be transparent to the user. But on configuration, the station can either be have stored gaseous hydrogen, or for the stations that require more capacity because of a greater demand, have hydrogen stored as a liquid. In terms of operation, that has to do with how the hydrogen gets to the station. One way is by truck, coming from a central location where the hydrogen is being produced. That's very much like we do today with gasoline. The second is where we can produce the hydrogen at the station. That provides us the opportunity to provide the hydrogen as it's needed day by day. And then a third method of operation is a bit in the future, although there's already one hydrogen station in California operating in this manner, would be the piping of hydrogen, much like we do natural gas, through a separate pipeline throughout the community, and then the hydrogen is pulled off from the street into the hydrogen station for the refueling. Well, I do believe it's a commercially viable technology today. We already have one automobile manufacturer who is retailing the car commercially, another that is announced this year. This is a result of 20 years or more of planning by most of the automobile manufacturers, anticipating that this is really the future of the automobile and of vehicle power in general, and also the fuel to power vehicles going forward. The reason for that has to do with climate change. It has to do with our continual goal to improve urban air quality. It has to do with geopolitics, where we work to have fuel independence. And a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle provides all of those attributes, as well as keeping the performance of the vehicle exactly as we have it today. Well, it is important for a planner today in any city within the United States to understand and begin studying the future of hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. The reason is that the transition is occurring. The train has left the station. All of the investment by the automobile companies over the last 20 to 25 years is indicative of the investment that they are making in this future. So being able to understand the technology, the requirements for it, the fueling stations today will put the planners a step ahead of others in preparing their cities for this future.